Hello Divination and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create a responsive icon navigation homepage with Divi. This is the final result we're aiming to achieve. So without wasting a lot of time, let's dive in and let's get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is to create a brand new page. So I'm going to come over here to Pages, click on Add New. And let's call our page homepage because we want this page to be the main page that people see when they land on our website. And I'll also show you how to add this page as the homepage. All right, so I'm going to give this a name, homepage. And then over here, I'm just going to click on publish. Okay, so before we go into the builder, we first need to set our page as the homepage. So I'm going to come over here to settings, reading. And then here we can see we have this option for static page. This is where we want to set our page to homepage. So the homepage needs to be set to homepage. This is the page that we've just created. All right, so let's save changes. Now let's go back to our page. So I'm going to click on all pages, and then all we have to do is to find that homepage. So I'm going to come over here to homepage and then click on edit with the Divi builder. And we're going to build our website from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and select start building. All right, so the next thing we're going to do here is to add some code, which is going to remove our header and footer because ideally we want this page just to have the icons as our navigation. Now, if you want to use the same code, I'm going to leave a link to the post in the show notes below. Right, so I've copied the code. I'm going to come over here to expand settings, click on this gear icon here, and then click on advanced, custom CSS, and then paste your CSS code in here. Now you'll notice that as soon as I've entered it, my header is now disappeared and the footer is also disappeared. So this is what this code does. Okay, so I'm going to click on save. So the next thing we're going to do now is to add a column to our design. So I'm going to come over here, click this plus button. So we're going to need a single column, and in that column, we need to add an image module. So I'm going to search for it and then select it. Right, so over here, we need to add our logo. So I'm just going to scroll down here and use some of the logos that I already have in my media library. But in your case, if you don't have any logos, you need to upload your own logo. So I'm going to go ahead now and click upload an image. And as we can see, that's our logo. Next, we want to make sure that our image is aligned to the left. So I'm going to click here on design, click on alignment, and then make sure that this is aligned left. So the next thing we're going to do is to add a bit of spacing below this logo. So to do that, we're going to come over here to spacing, and we're going to add a bottom margin. And while we're here, we might as well add the sizes for our tablet and our smartphone. It's always good practice to add all your values here for the different screen sizes. All right, so I'm going to add 20 VW here, and that's for the tablet, and that's also the same for the phone. So the next stage now is to add a text module. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to come over here, click this plus button, and search for my text module. So what we need here is just some text to just tell our visitor what they need to do next. So here I'm just going to type in select a menu item to continue to our website. Right, so we really want this to be a heading. So I'm going to highlight all this text here, and then I'm going to set this to heading 1. Now let's go ahead and customize the text. So I'm going to come over here to design, heading text. So as you can see here, heading 1 is selected. If not, you need to make sure you're on the right tab, and then you want to click down this drop down. So the font we're going to use here is called Didact Gothic. So I'm going to select it. So make sure that it's set to bold. The alignment needs to be left, and our color here is going to be a dark gray. So again, as I mentioned, if you want to use the exact same colors as I'm using throughout this design, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. All right, so I've just added my dark gray color in there, and the next thing we're going to do now is to add the size. So I'm going to come over here to our heading text size. By default, it's set to 30 pixels, but we want this set to 5 VW. Right, so again, for the tablet, we're also going to set a different size for that. So I'm going to come over here to this little icon, click on the tablet tab, and then we're going to set this to 6 VW. And then on the phone, we're going to set this to 7 VW. All right, so that's looking great. The next stage now is to set our line height. So at the moment it's set to 1 EM. Let's set this to 0.8. So this is just to reduce the size between the lines a little bit. All right, so now that we've set all that, the next thing we need to do now is to go to the sizing. We need to adjust the width of our text module. So I'm going to come over here, click on sizing. Okay, so here we're going to set the desktop to 80%. So I'm going to type it in here like that. And then I'm going to go in and also set the sizes for the tablet. So in fact, for the desktop, it needs to be 68. Okay, so it's a bit smaller there. Okay, so for the tablet, it needs to be set to 80. And for the phone, it needs to be 88. So you just need to go in and adjust accordingly. All right, so now that we have this, make sure that module alignment is set to left on all the different screen sizes. Right, so the next thing we're going to do now is to add a divider module. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to click here on this plus button, search for divider. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is to just make sure, in fact, before we continue, make sure show divider is set to yes. And then we're going to go in and add our color and our size. So I'm going to click here on design, color, click here on the eyedropper tool, and then I'm going to paste my color in here. And this is going to be the same color as the text, which is that dark gray I added in the previous step. Okay, so now that I have this line, the next thing we need to do now is to add a divider weight. Right, so I'm going to come over here to sizing. So our divider weight here, we're going to set this to 10 pixels. So you can see here, the line is nice and big. Now we need to set the width because the line is way too long. So let's set it to about 8%. Right, so now it's nice and small. The next stage is to set the tablet and the phone. So I'm going to click here on this icon here, go to the tablet. So on the tablet, this needs to be 20%. And on the phone, it needs to be 25%. Okay, so that's looking good. Now make sure that module alignment is also set to left on these three screen sizes. Right, so pretty much we have everything that we need here all set. So the next stage now is to add a brand new row. So I'm going to click here on this plus button, and in this row we're going to have 3 columns. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now we're going to go into the sizing because we need this row to be full width. So I'm just going to close this for now. We're going to come back and make some adjustments to that. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon and then click on design. So over here, we need to go to sizing, make sure your width is 100% here. And we also need to set it to 100% there on the bottom. So now it's going all edge to edge, which is great. Next, we don't want any spaces between our columns. So to achieve that, we need to activate use gutter width and set it to 1. Okay, so now there are no spaces between our columns. So that's looking great. Now it's time to add spacing. So I'm going to click here on spacing, and the first thing we're going to do is to add a bottom padding, and it's going to be 0.2 VW. Next, we're going to add our left padding, and this is going to be 4 VW, and the right padding is going to be 25 VW. Right, so while we're here on the custom padding, let's go ahead and add the other sizes for the other screen sizes. So I'm going to come over here to the tablet, and on the tablet here, the left padding needs to be 2 VW, and on the phone, it needs to be 1 VW. So over here to the right, it's going to be 1 VW, and then on the tablet, on the right side, this also needs to be 1 VW. Right, so now it's time to add our column 1 padding. So we're going to start with our column 1 right padding. So this is going to be 0.2 VW. The left padding is going to be 0.1. And we're also going to go to column 2. And for column 2 right padding, it's going to be 0.1. And left padding is going to be 0.2. And finally, column 3 left padding is going to be 0.2. So now that we have all our column padding in place, the next stage is to add some custom CSS. Now, what this CSS code is going to do is to make sure that all our views are all going to be in the single column throughout the 3 devices. So I'm going to come over here to advanced custom CSS, and on the actual main elements, this is where we're going to add our code. So I'm going to paste it in there. And as I mentioned, if you want to use the same code on your website, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. All right, so now that we have all this, I'm going to save this. Now, before we continue, we want to make sure that our top row here is also set to full width. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come over here to my row settings, design, sizing, and then we are going to stretch this to 100%. And for our maximum width, we're going to set this to 100% as well. Great. So everything now is all edge to edge. So now we can continue. So the next stage now is to start adding our blurbs. So I'm going to click this plus button and search for my blurb. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to select it. Now it's time to customize it. So first of all, we want to get rid of all this text. And over here, this is where we want to add our title for this first icon. Okay, so now let's go ahead and choose the icon. So we're going to come over here. Make sure use icon is set to yes. And this is where now we're going to choose the icon that we're going to use. So for the home page, we might as well look for an icon that resembles like a home. So I'm just going to go through here and find my icon. Okay, so what we're going to do here is to add a gradient. So I'm going to click the second tab, click here on the first color and paste my color in here. Now, as I mentioned before, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below, which has all these colors. So the second color here is going to be a full transparency. So just make sure that you drag all the slider all the way down here, just like that. Next, we're going to come over here to a gradient type, make sure it's set to radial, and then the direction is centered. And then here on the start position, this needs to be set to 60%. And on the end position, this also needs to be 60%. Now, the next stage is to add a background image to this. So to do that, we want to come over here to the second tab. Now, the image that we need is on the post, which I'll link to in the show notes below. Now, I've already gone ahead and downloaded this image, so it's in my media library. In fact, it's on my computer. So I'm going to come over here to upload files, select files, and I'm going to come over here to my desktop, double click on it, and then click upload an image. So now you can see we have this image now added above this shape. And then over here, you just want to make sure as well that it's set to no repeat and the image position is also set to centered. Right, so now let's go to the icon settings. So we're going to click here on design, image and icon. So first of all, we want to make sure that our icon is set to white. So I'm going to come over here and just make sure that we have white here. Next, we also we need to make sure that our icon placement is set to top, and then we need to use icon font size. So the reason why we use icon font size is we can go in now and really add the size that we need to this icon. So for the desktop, I'm going to set it to 4VW, and I'm going to go into the other sizes here. So for the tablet, we're going to set this to 6VW. And for the phone, we're going to set it to 8VW. Great, so that's looking nice. Right, so the next thing we're going to do now is to go into our text settings. So the text we're going to customize is this heading text right here. So as you can see, the color is not good and it also needs to be aligned. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click here on this brush tool, make sure it's aligned, change the color to white. And the font we need here as well is Didact Gothic, the one that we used here for the main title. Right, so I have that selected. The next stage is to just add some letter spacing. So here we are currently at 0 pixels. So we're going to set it to -2 pixels. Okay. Right, so the next thing is to set our size. So for our title size, we're going to set it to 2VW. And we might as well go into the tablet and the phone as well. So for the tablet, this is going to be 3VW. And for the phone, it's going to be 4VW. All right. So now that we have all that set, our line height needs to be set to 0. Okay, so now it's time to go to our top padding. So let's scroll down here and go to spacing. Right, so for the spacing here, top padding needs to be set to 9VW. So this is going to be applied both to the top and the bottom. So now you can see we have a perfect circle, which is exactly what we need to achieve. Now we need to go in now and set the sizes for the desktop and the phone. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click here on this little icon. So for the desktop and the phone, this needs to be set to 12 and both the top and the bottom. So here we just want to maintain that circle, make sure it's looking great. So 12 VW is also fine here for the phone. Okay, great. So the next stage now is to clone this twice and add it to these two other spaces here. So I'm going to come over here, hit Command C to copy. If you're on a PC, it's Control C. And then over here, you want to hit Control V. If you're on a PC, if you're on a Mac, it's Command V. Next, you want to change the blurb content. So I'm going to do some inline editing here. So this page here, this icon here can be services. And this one here could be about. Now let's change the blurb icon. So let's go in now and make those changes. So this one here for services, we're going to come to image and icon and then just choose the icon that goes with services. So I'm going to go with this one here. Move on to the next one. So the about. Again, I'm going to click here on my blurb settings, image and icon. So the about, we're just going to go with this icon here. Now, the other thing that you also need to do is to make sure you link these pages, these links to the actual pages. And let me show you where you do that. So for example, here we are on this blurb. So we need to come over here to link, and then this is where you want to add your link to your about page. Same applies for the services and also the home page. So make sure you do that step. Right, so the next thing you want to do now is to change the first color of these gradients, just to distinguish these icons. So I'm going to come over here to this one here, click on background, and we are going to change the first color here. So I'm going to paste my color in here. It's going to be very close to white. I'm going to save this for now, move on and also do the third blurb, change the color. So it's only the first color that we're changing here. I'm going to paste it like that and then save. So as you can see in column 2, we can't really read what's in here because our colors are very close to white. So let's go back in and just make sure that we go to our design, image and icon and change this to black or very dark gray. We also need to do the same to the text. So I'm going to come over here, choose my color here. So now we can see it's really, really dark. Okay, so that's looking great. We can read everything now. So we're going to save. Now we are going to clone the entire row because we need to add some more navigation icons. So we're going to click here on duplicate. So now we have more on our page. So what you can do now is to go in and rearrange these, change the colors as you'd like. So for example, let's say I want a different color blurb in here. So I'm just going to drag that one here and then just drag this one here into position. So it just depends how you want to arrange them. So let's say this one here is going to be my contact. So I can just go in, first of all, change the color. So I'm going to click here on design. In fact, I'm going to come to background, click on the gradient, change my color here to a really dark gray. And then what I can also do is to change the icon itself. So I'm going to come back over here, image and icon, and then I'm going to choose my contact icon, go with that. Okay, and make sure you link this to the actual contact page. So this is where your link would go. Next, I'm going to come over here and just rename this page to contact. This icon to contact. Okay, so we can save that. And then over here, we can also change this to something different. So maybe this needs to be our blog. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come over here. First of all, I'm going to change my icon. So for my blog, I'm going to go with this icon here. Change the text. So notice that I'm also doing inline editing here. So I'm going to say blog. And now I'm going to change the background color. So this time I'm going to click here on the gradient and notice that the only color I'm changing here is the very first color here on the gradient. Okay, so I'm going to go in, change that color. So the only thing that we need to do now is to go in and change these colors so that they're easier to read on this background. Okay. So now that we have all this, the last one here, you can save that, change it to whatever you want. So this is all going to depend on what your icons are going to be for your pages on your website. So again, as I mentioned here, as you can see, services has the same icon here. So we also need to go in and change this icon. So maybe this could be changed to shop. So let's go in and change that. And then all we have to do is to come back in and choose our our icon for the shop. So I'm going to go in, image and icon. Okay, so there's our icon. And then save. Now, the most important thing here, and I want to re-emphasize this, is to make sure that all your icons are linked to the pages. This is how this is going to work correctly. All right, so now that we have all this set, I'm going to go ahead now and save. And let's exit the Visual Builder and have a preview of our website. So if I scroll down now here, we can see that these are all our icons. And if you've linked this to the right places, these will go to the actual pages. So there you have it. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and do follow us on our social media platforms. By doing so, you'll be notified every time we release new tutorials. Until next time, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.